the probability of the Alianza winning 8 senatorial candidates is very high. So Alianza will not just win, they will win big.
Yeah, alam niyo naman yung consistent criticism ng surveys, nagma-mind conditioning daw kayo. Ano namang masasabi niyo sa ganon?
We are just messengers. Honestly, we give too much credit to surveys. We have to temper surveys by saying that they're really just snapshots. They're not guarantees.
Sinong number one? Si Bongo pa rin?
Yes, number 1 pa rin si Bongo, tied with Erwin Tulfo.
Meron ko bang fearless forecast mo? Sino magna number 1 sa kanilang dalawa?
Yun nga. It's
From newsroom to screen, the Philippine Star continues to deliver stories that matter. This is Truth on the Line. Joining us here today is Okta Research President Ranjit Rai. Welcome to Truth on the Line, Professor.
We're very fortunate and we're very thankful that you, Ma'am Ami and the Philippine Star, are partners really since COVID times pa, given us a space whether it's a newspaper or online for research disseminated by Okta. We're truly, truly thankful and grateful.
Yes, bilib na bilib kami sa Okta simula noon, nakakatakot sa mga prediction niyo noon eh. Linawin lang natin, Professor, Okta is a non-profit, huh?
Okay, so we wanted to emphasize that Okta Research is a non-profit, non-partisan research organization composed largely of UP faculty. We have one fellow from the UST, Dr. Father Nicanor Austriaco.
Sa ngayon, of course, ang focus ng lahat, ilang araw na lang election na, and we understand Okta is coming out with one final pre-election survey.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we're coming out. We promised the media and our people, our kababayans, one more election survey, and we were able to get enough resources to have a 1,200 respondent survey from April 20 to 24. Yeah. What seems to be clear is that it's a tight race. Looking at the fill-out rate, meaning the rate of how much is filled out by our voters, Kasi the survey is nationwide, but we only interviewed those who intend to vote and those who are registered voters. So this is the body of voters that will come out on May 12, to vote for various candidates in the midterm elections of 2025. And yung fill-out rate is kind of low, averaging 5 to 7 names pa lang. So there could be many indications about this. People are strategically voting. People are looking at name recall and choosing candidates they know only because those are the people they know, or that they're still studying. When you look at the fill out rate now, only 40% of our population can fill out 12 names. Most 60% can, on the average, fill out between parang 6 to 8 names, depending on. So people are either confused, they're still trying to find out, or they're looking at name recall. Depends on the certain places. Like in Mindanao, you're seeing 5 to 8 on the average over the last 3 cycles of surveys, and maybe they're voting for a slate lang, or for the rest of the country, they're looking at name recall, people that that come to mind, and they can only fill out on the average between 5 to 8 names. So there's a lot of things can still happen with that kind of low fill out rate, which means
undecided sila, no? Undecided sila.
Ang dami pang pwedeng mangyari kasi they might be making the decision on election day na. So which brings in a lot of uncertainty, as far as the surveys are concerned. Although surveys are never deterministic naman, Ma'am Ami, there were probability, no? And what we're seeing is that officially, I think all of us in Okta agree na numbers 9, those in rank 9 to 12 are, things could change, meaning they're still vulnerable. And think, we did the survey 2 weeks ago. So much has happened. For example, our survey doesn't account for the controversy of prime water, for example. That's a big thing. It doesn't account for all the endorsements, the new endorsements happening, and the dynamics that are happening at the ground level, meaning the negotiation with your political machines at the local level, the sample ballots already distributed. All of these things are not accounted for in the survey. So I come with all these caveats because as a citizen and also as a social science researcher, we have to temper surveys by saying that they're really just snapshots. They're not guarantees.
But on the other hand, alam niyo naman yung consistent criticism ng surveys, nagma-mind conditioning daw kayo. Yan ang sinasabi ng mga tao, di ba? Kahit snapshot siya, sabi, nagma-mind condition kayo and you are influencing, in particular, yung mga financiers ng mga kandidato, which can be self-fulfilling, lalo na sa umpisa, makikita nila, eto mataas ang survey, dito na lang ako pupunta. Mas maraming resources ngayon yan para mangampanya, and mas tumataas yung name recall. Ano namang masasabi niyo sa ganon?
Yeah, that's a fair argument to make, no? And our colleagues from the other more senior organizations have also dealt with this. So number one, based on the data and even Okta's data, there's mind conditioning. People don't vote based on surveys. That's the reality. We don't have data to say that 50%, 70%, or majority of our voters base their decisions on surveys. So there's, as far as Okta is concerned, the data shows there's no mind conditioning. Number two, the mind conditioning is being really, unfortunately, since we're here at the Philippine Star, I can blame the media for this, though, because we just release our surveys. The way media and other stakeholders utilize our results may lead to that kind of outcome. We live in a digital age where there's so many actors, no? Philippine Star is one of the few places you can get accurate news, no? And legitimate news. Everywhere else is disinformation and misinformation. So the way social media in particular is utilizing our neutral survey results sometimes can lead to that. So we are just messengers, but the tendency is really to shoot the messenger talaga here sa Philippines. But we give too much credit to surveys. Honestly, we give too much credit to surveys. And surveys have been, can be, and have proven to be inaccurate sometimes, no?
Do you have that problem of accuracy dito sa Pilipinas? Kasi so far naman in the past elections, okay naman yung the reputable pollsters, tama naman yung mga lumalabas ninyo, except nyo sa bottom, which you keep telling us naman na hindi laging accurate yung nasa ilalim sa Senate race. Pero sa ganon, anong nangyari doon?
But we don't have that kind of problem here in the Philippines. And there's so few of us who are reputable and who do it well. And then it's easy to gauge our performance naman. Like for example,
Teka, bakit tayo walang ganung problema? Is it a technological problem, methodology problem?
Well, we have a different set of problems, no? Atin is voter awareness and information. That's a key challenge for many of voters. I think that probably explains the low fill out rate, meaning when they fill out.
No, I mean, why don't we have the accuracy problem ng pollsters sa US and sa UK? Bakit wala tayong ganong problema?
I think it's a confluence of many things. For one, we still, at least sa Okta and maybe sa the others, we still do the paper survey, which is the gold standard, really. It's very expensive. It's not as convenient as, let's say, doing a telephone survey, which is still continues to be hard to do and very expensive to do in the Philippines. Because of that, surveys tend to be a little more accurate, no, than let's say in terms of performance in recent times, no. So when you look at the 2022 election, when Okta came out with its survey, it said 58.1% will vote for BBM. On the actual day of the counting, it was 58.7. So less than a percent. So near. When you look at our senatorial up to number 13 or 14, we were correct. The only thing we did not predict was Robin Padilla becoming number one. But sabi ko kay Professor David, only God knew he would be number one. That's also the dynamic I want to emphasize, Ma'am Ami. Na look at the case of Senator Robin Padilla. He was number 4, 5 in rank and suddenly becomes number 1 on election day. So many things came into fruition. So much dynamic came into creating that change, no, in the survey ranking. So para sa akin, nagbabago talaga yung mga numero na yun. And even today, where it's at least 50% of our population seems to be polarized between pro-Marcos and pro-Duterte, and around 40% are independent, it's a recipe for a very dynamic election. No? But we feel top 8 will be solid and more or less secure. We also feel that the probability of the Alianza winning 8 senatorial candidates is very high. So Alianza will not just win, they will win big. That's the first image. Second, we believe right now, based on the data, that there will be 2 candidates from the opposition and likely 2 independents coming in. Ang problema natin, hindi natin alam natin yung isang independent, most likely si Ben Tulfo. Pero yung isa, toss-up, no? Hindi natin alam kung si Willie Revilla yan or si Pam Aquino. Kasi it's really, that spot is really contested by those 2 names in particular. So, yan yung nakikita namin so far. It's going to be tough to call, maybe for me, at personally 10, 11, 12, no? Sa Okta. Kasi those in 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 still have a statistical chance. So, bigyan ko lang Ma'am Ami ng chismis from Professor David that just came now. Marcoleta is the biggest gainer. Congressman Marcoleta is the biggest gainer. And right now, technically, he's within range, 11. Rank 11. We're still settling the range. But while he's out of the straight 12, statistically, the difference between where he is now and number 12 is just 1 or 2 percentage points. I think that's the most notable because he went up. He was the only one who went up more than margin of error. So,
consistent, consistent yung trend nyo. Dahil consistent yung trend over the past, since you started the election surveys, nung lumabas na yung official lineup, ano yung nakikita mo talaga? What's driving this voter preferences? Kasi number 1, opposition. Pero nangingibabaw yung alyansa. The administration candidates are dominating. But on the other hand, number 1 mo si Senator Bongo and Senator Bato is up there, no? Medyo mataas siya, top 6. How do you explain that?
I think, it's a confluence of many factors. One thing is the context we're in, no? There's a major fight between 2 dominant families who have alliances all over the country. I mean, we cannot understand the dynamic that we have right now without understanding that. Second, there are real economic and social challenges that the administration continues to work on, and is an expectation unmet for many voters. So we have to understand that there is also some voter resentment, no? Not just because of the Duterte incarceration, but really hunger and poverty are a real challenge for the administration. We tend not to take that seriously, but actually that's a serious driver for voters. When you look at our last survey result, which we presented to, and thankfully Philippine Star took up, what are the large blocks of sentiments or issues that drive the Filipino voter? The first block is really socioeconomic, meaning gut issues. Number 1 was, of course, the high prices, no? And it's particularly the high prices of food, no? And particularly rice, no? Number 2 is really quality jobs, access to quality jobs. And then a second batch of issues really focus on well-being and health, which probably explains Bongo's prominence in Balance Luzon and NCR, no? Apart from his base of support of pro-Duterte supporters who have consolidated in Central Visayas and in most of Mindanao. So meron siyang block voting doon. Then he's getting votes pa here. Not just from pro-Duterte people, Ma'am Ami, also from independents and even pro-Marcos supporters because of his performance, no, as a senator in the Malasakit Center. So we're seeing that. So first is socioeconomic issues are driving voter preferences. Number 2, health and well-being. And third, you won't believe this, Ma'am Ami, it's now a big issue, or it's become a challenge. Peace and order. Drugs. Criminality is a core issue now for voters. So those 3 clusters of issues are driving voter sentiment, or may have been driving voter sentiment that we're seeing the surveys and seeing in the dynamic of the election today.
Pero in previous elections, hindi ba siya naging issue, peace and order? Hindi ba yan ang dahilan kung bakit nanalo nga si Duterte?
Yeah, I know, but you would have thought na baka that has been cast aside, na it's not a big issue yung drugs, but actually whether we look at local surveys that we were accessible to or we have done, or even national surveys, the one we just presented sa Philippine Star, which we gave to the media, now Philippine Star talked about yung vote sentiments that are driving the 2025 voter preference, no? Nabigla kami na ang taas na naman ng peace and order, lalo na yung the fight against drugs. It's an issue for many Filipinos. Last point, and if you look at images, what's driving the elections, you won't be 18% of Filipinos would vote for a candidate who would have a strong, assertive stance on the West Philippine Sea. We say defending our territory. So 18% would vote for a candidate who would espouse that. Pero yun nga, because this election was never about issues, the candidates, only one candidate was able to distinguish himself, no? Si Senator Tolentino on that issue. Pero he's not doing as well as the others, no? Because nobody was identified as anti-West Philippine Sea. Nobody was branded that this whole campaign. So voters are still, as the fill-out rate is showing, fill-out rate ng ating survey on votes, no? Who they would vote out their preference for voting, mababa yung fill-out rate natin. Siguro voters are still studying. Hopefully they'll be studying and they're still choosing. But what seems to be evident is name recall, popularity are still dominant drivers also of choice.
Di ba there was an attempt by the administration to paint nga the pro-Duterte candidates as pro-China and dyan na nga anti-Philippines when it comes to the West Philippine Sea? Hindi nag-work yung messaging na yon?
That messaging is quite powerful. When you look at our sentiment, those issues that are driving, voters are clear. They will not vote for somebody who is pro-China on the West Philippine Sea or who will not defend Philippine territory in the West Philippine Sea. But the problem is it was only the president that articulated it. It was never really articulated very strongly by candidates in Alianza, and for practical, pragmatic reasons. They want to be able to be, or they want to be able to get votes also in Mindanao, in the bailiwicks of the Dutertes, in Central Visayas. So they didn't want to isolate or alienate voters who had a different view, who would think that it's more an anti-Duterte stand than anything. So hindi na develop yung hindi na articulate na mabuti at hindi na optimize no yung issue na yon. Nobody actually in this election was branded as anti-West Philippines, anti-Philippine position. Wala eh.
Yung grupo actually ang in-identify, not particular candidates, di ba?
Yes.
Kasi kung sasabihin mo na yung DDS yun, na eto mga to pro-China, hindi nagre-register ba na ito pala kandidato to ng Duterte, sila Bongo, sila Bato, hindi ba? Hindi siya nag-register.
Hindi siya nag-register kasi these people are doing very well in the surveys today. So obviously, yun na naging issue sa kanila. And in fact, the momentum is with them at the moment. But that momentum is slowing down. When you look at the current survey, it seems, according to Professor David, a lot of the Alianza candidates got a slight decline, very slight. But it's nominal, meaning within the margin of error. So what it shows is that there's a tightening of the vote. At the moment, people are still open to filling out completing their 12 candidates. Right now, most people can fill up between 5 to 8 names. They're filling out mostly the names of candidates they recall and who are part of their own preferred slate. Now, we asked the same question in our survey recently, in the first week of April, how many will vote straight, Alianza or straight? No, actually, a small minority, not even 20% of the population will vote straight. So it's really the voters, when you look at their behavior, they want a mix. So yan yung nakikita namin sa data namin, and it's also borne out by the fill up rate, which is showing a low fill-up rate, which means voters are strategically voting. They're still studying. They may not be clear who their preferred candidates are. They're only filling up a certain number of names, and that's why the movement is very, very gradual. Almost no movement, no? except at the bottom, where you see a momentum, let's say, for Kiko Pangilinan,
Ayun, tatanong
for
ko, si Kiko.
Yeah, Kiko is still within striking distance. I can't talk about the details, but the people who are within striking distance are number one, Revillame, who we think has a very, very good chance of winning, but it's uncertain in our own survey. I don't know why, because he's not. What we can say, looking at his numbers over the past 1 year, no. Number 2 is Manny Pacquiao. Number 3 is Amy Marcos. Number 4 is Benher Abalos. Number 5 is Marcoleta. Number 6 is
Si Bam.
Kiko Pangilinan.
Si
Si Bam
Kiko.
is already in eh. Si Bam is already in.
In na siya.
So, wala nang problema si Bam in that sense, based on our survey. But, to sustain that, to consolidate and sustain that, 2 weeks old na yung survey na to, people have to understand. So, may time lag na to, can Bam sustain it? Especially given the fact that, knocking on his at the door for his spot is really Willie Revillame, who is still extremely popular, no? He may not have the machinery being an independent, but certainly there's a base of support that will include him. Although now, siguro hindi siya na sasama dahil kasi fill out rate niya 5 to 7 lang eh. Pero what if on the day of the voting, people will change their mind, they want to fill up, and many people will just fill up, no, just for the sake of filling up. And they'll just put in people that they know. So you have a strong candidate in Revillame. Number 2, you have Manny Pacquiao, no? Who's he's actually declined since January. But we feel he's very competitive candidate. He's up there. And then we cannot discount Benher Abalos and Amy Marcos because of the machinery.
Pero si Amy, di ba parang static si Amy, di ba? Di siya masyadong sobrang bagal ng akyat.
Actually, she's been in decline since January. But she's getting endorsements from a particular group. And we don't know rin the impact of, apparently Iglesia ni Cristo is also going to come out with their list. That may have an impact. But they have to take into consideration is that there is a very strong chance, no, still for these very competitive candidates who have bailiwicks, who have a base of support, no? Like, for example, Amy Marcos, the Ilocos, NCR, she's still a Marcos, and she's very strongly supported by Sara Duterte. So you don't know the dynamics over the last 2 weeks. Maybe it has changed. And sample ballots are being distributed now as we speak. So we don't know that dynamic. And then number 2, the Iglesia ni Cristo. Iglesia ni Cristo has to take into consideration that now, at least in Octa's survey, Marcoleta has an excellent chance. Excellent chance to make it to the top 12. Will they now spread their support to everyone, or will they just focus on Marcoleta? It doesn't make sense for them to vote for everyone at the expense of Congressman Marcoleta, who now is breaking into. He's the person with the biggest gain in this particular survey. He's higher now than Philip Salvador, who now is statistically out of our own, at least, but still has a chance. We don't know kasi how people will vote in reality.
Sinong number 1? Si Bongo pa rin?
Yes, number 1 pa rin si Bongo, tied with Erwin Tulfo. And the gap
tied with Erwin Tulfo.
Yeah,
ikaw, crystal ball mo. Meron ka bang fearless forecast mo? Sino magna number 1 sa kanilang dalawa? Sige na, fearless forecast.
Honestly, it's hard It's hard kasi there's so many factors But Bongo is poised to take it because he has apparently the Iglesia support, the Duterte support. He has a very strong support of non-Duterte voters, independents here in NCR and Balance Luzon. On the other hand, some handicap, no? Because his Mindanao vote is a suspect His central Visayas vote is suspect. So that's the way it stands. But the reality will only happen in May 12, no? When people actually go out and vote. So when you look at our surveys, dig deep, Filipinos do not just vote because they recall the name, popular siya, kilala. They also vote based on ethno-linguistic ethnicity, no? So mga Ilocanos tend to vote for Ilocanos, mga Bisaya tend to vote for Bisaya, alam mo yun, and then Ilonggos tend to vote for Ilonggos, no? Or Ilonggo leaning candidates, where the present is actually, that's a black box, yung Iloilo, Negros area. That's suboptimal dyan. So that's a place where Alianza can get a lot of support. And then now, because of Marcoleta coming in, we don't know how Iglesia is going to navigate, they're providing support for candidates. Kasi, di ba? It doesn't make sense. If your candidate needs an additional 2 million, then why don't you just focus on voting for him na lang and not voting for others? Nakuha mo yung problem. It's a game theory sort of issue na I think will become a challenge, no? But Iglesia ni Cristo is going to study this, I'm sure. Given all of these unpredictables, no, these factors that may affect voter behavior and turnout and even outcome, Octa is basically saying that 9 to 12 is still dynamic. It's too close to call. Mostly 11 to 12 is too close to call, but 9 to 12 may be affected by current changes, no, in the political landscape.
Alam ba ng mga respondents niyo kung ano trabaho ng mga senador?
Halo-halo. Honestly, it has hit again in the latest trust and approval ratings, di ba? Sara Duterte had an enormous jump in trust and approval ratings, even though technically she did nothing during the quarter. She was out, she had no official portfolio, she was criticizing government. And right now, we're really contemplating what she suggested. Na number one, people should understand what the jobs are of particular individuals. And maybe we have to augment quantitative research, the methodology of surveys, with other methodologies, no, like focus group discussions, more qualitative type of researches, because we can't find answers to very complex questions. I mean, for example, how do you answer that? Your question is, what explains the high trust and performance ratings? VP Duterte, given the fact that she was impeached, the fact that there's an ongoing case against her that's really damning, it's very hard to say that she did something substantial in the first quarter. We're at a loss to answer that, no? Except that partially, maybe tangentially, it can be explained by contextual things, no? Trust in her has increased, and that's probably a product of the sympathy. What she did during the time her dad was, her former president Duterte was incarcerated. And, once trust goes up, for whatever reason, there seems to be some effect on performance also. A perception that you're doing well as a vice president, maybe as an anak. It's really hard to explain, and maybe it's stretching it to try to explain it using just surveys. So that's why I'm saying that we need to study it more, and we need to take your suggestion seriously and add a dimension to understand how people truly understand the roles of our leaders and the functions before we assess if they can truly, if they can truly assess, no, properly, no. So, but it will also require people outside of the survey business, including media, to help, no, inform our public on a range of issues. Luckily for us and for other survey companies, Filipinos are, I don't know if they're better informed. There's more information around now, not just from the Philippine Star, but from social media, a lot of which are fake news and all of that. No, a lot of that may come into, I should say, explaining why people trust her, why people perceive that maybe her critiquing government is a function. I don't know, I'm stretching it. I know it's not part of the data. But as a social scientist, I'm trying to make sense of why people think she has performed well. And she has been very articulate, no? As far, or at least in the minds of our people, articulate in her criticism of the weaknesses of this administration. And, thanks to the administration, that it's really, not being able to be resolute and, how should I say this, effective in solving many problems. It's also feeding into that narrative. So people are maybe perceiving, because of all of these things, that, wow, this girl be trusted. She's talking about our issues. Number two, she's critiquing the government for us. These are the things we want to say to the government, but we can't seem to say. So maybe she's doing a function that's good, which is to hold the government accountable. Maybe in a indirect way, that could explain why her trust and performance ratings were up.
May tanong pa ako dyan, kaya lang we're running out of time. Ilan na kayo ngayon sa Okta? Dati 8 lang kayo eh. Ilan na kayo ngayon?
May 20 naman kami, ma'am. May 20 na kami ngayon.
May
Mostly
20 na.
professors, so majority are assistant professors from UP Manila, UP Diliman, UP Los Baños. We're very proud of our group. And then we have, Father Nicanor Austriaco. So we our goal in Okta is to inform, to empower. So yun lang naman. We hope we're informing people. It's very hard in this very polarized situation like ours, and in a situation where you have so much fake news, to share, di ba, knowledge and information coming out of surveys. And while surveys are imperfect, they have a democratizing proletarianizing impact rin to some extent, kasi the regular common tao is never really consulted by people in power. Their voice comes out in surveys. That's the power of surveys for us, because without surveys, without these trust and approval ratings, most government officials will continue to do what they want to do and what they should not do. But because they listen to surveys, they're affected by surveys. To some extent, change happens. And it's not just Okta that's contributing. There's Pulse Asia, there's SWS. And then a second point is, as a people, asking the regular Filipino where they want to go as a community, as a nation, requires some sort of reflection on who we are and what we want. And maybe at some level, surveys help in understanding, providing understanding to everyday Filipinos about how other Filipinos think on a range of issues. Because if we know who we are, understanding what we want and hopefully deciding where we want to go is easier. And kulang tayo sa reflection. And surveys, it's not the only way to do that, but surveys to some extent, illuminate the Filipino mindset on a range of issues, whether it's voting, whether there's perception on issues like the West Philippine Sea. We understand that ito palang tingin ng mga tao taga Mindanao, mga tao taga Visayas, taga Balance Luzon, and National Cap on a range of issues. And I guess that's particularly useful in the long run. Once you have this collection of data that looks into the Filipino mindset, the Filipino preference, and their biases and prejudices on a range of issues, I think we'll get to know who we are. And getting to know who we are is very important to understanding what we want and, hopefully crafting a pathway to where we want to go as a people.
Magpapasalamat ako ngayon. Professor, I know you're very busy. Mag-election, ang dami niyong ginagawa. You have several hats. Thank you for joining Truth on the Line. Professor.
Thank you so much for inviting us. I hope we are able to all come together on May 12 and vote for the nation. Thank you po.